Hey y'all, happy Tuesday. Hopefully everyone is doing well. We're going to give the notifications just a few minutes here to go out. We have a couple of different things to talk about tonight. Before I do that, I definitely want to always start out with thanking everyone that supports my channel. If you're not subscribed to my channel, make sure you go ahead and click the link below. Also, let me give a special thank you to my patrons and my VIP patrons, Daniel and Ray Ray, as well as the new patrons that have signed up over there in my Patreon. Also, y'all, I will be in Orlando, Florida this weekend for the Young Americans Liberty Revolution 2021. I will be speaking on their 2A focus panel, so I will be there Friday morning speaking. I'm super excited about that. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into today's topic. I see y'all are slowly coming in the room. Hey, Bruce. Hey, Darrell. Hey, Jeremy. Hey, El Muhammad. So, tonight, y'all, it's going to be, cause I gotta do it. I just have to do it. I have to do what I have to do. And so, tonight is probably going to be a tad bit a little noise talking here, okay? So yes, get your popcorn ready, grab your mugs, whatever you need to put in your mug, okay, tea or whatever else you need. Go ahead and sip on whatever you need, because we need to talk tonight. So one of the very first things I want to talk about, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time going into this, specifically because I've kind of been hinting at some of these things the last 2 weeks for you guys that were here, and you may know. But NBC News published an article today along with, do I have it here? This is MSNBC, okay? And let me show you guys what I'm looking at, because we have a few different things to talk about tonight, okay? But this is over here on MSNBC. Report: police departments hide most body cams. After Trump era and BLM protests, police shootings continue at same rate. Police are killing Americans at the same rate in 2021 as they did in 2020, okay? When the murder of George Floyd sparked major protests, MSNBC's chief legal correspondent, Ari Melber, reports on police killings over the past 3 years and discusses 3 factors for why the rate of force has not budged and how to change that. So he goes on, he talks in this video, and maybe we'll watch like the first minute here. It's like 9 minutes long. Hold on. I don't think y'all can hear that because I can't hear it.
You watch the news, but if you don't know some of them, if some of those names and details are unfamiliar, that may be because so much of this is treated by our system, even after all this, as normal. So that even after the intense protests and a moment when more white Americans appeared to gain consciousness about a well-known fact of life in over-policed communities, during a moment where people did march or they did post online and big corporations touted that Black Lives Matter. But as the months go on and people go back to living life like it's normal, if they live the kind of lives that allow them to just forget about all this, to pretend it's not there. Now, civil rights leaders and activists, they sense this would happen because these are old and entrenched dynamics in American history and law and racism. If you listen to activists, you'd hear them literally anticipate this before it happened. Right here's an earlier picture during the protests of an activist urging people then support us when it's not trending, when it's not the hot topic online or social media or politics. Because you cannot fix multi-generational systemic problems with episodic spasms of effort.
So he just goes on to talk about this, and I kind of wanted y'all to get the general theme of it. He does say that, you have some activists that kind of talked about this, right? But what I find funny is even like this news reporter, if you go to these people's pages right now, okay, the Patrice Colliers, the Tamika Mallory's, the Sean Kings, the Colin Kaepernicks, okay, not only are most of these people moving into mansions, something that I've recently noted is you'll have these people at the top of these organizations. They're making all this movie. They'll cater their whole life, dedicate their entire life to talking about how scared and fearful and how they want to combat white supremacy just to use the funds that they've used from working, these positions, whatever you want to call it, to turn around and move in some majority white neighborhoods. But we'll save that discussion for another time. However, you go check out any of these people's current discussions, this is nowhere to be mentioned, nowhere to be talked about. Everybody has basically moved on with their lives and are focusing on other things. Now, do I think that it's wrong for people to move on with their lives and focus on other things? I wouldn't necessarily say that, but what I would say is wrong is, first of all, people that are hypocritical. I would say people that are grifters, that when this is trending, they go out of their way to make money off of cases like this, information like this, of the energy, and then they move on with their lives. And what I will particularly say, which is completely 100% wrong, particularly as it relates to me, is as I tried to explain exactly this to people last year, just plainly as possible, that you were being played, somehow I was the problem. It's problematic for me to tell people the truth. It's me being negative instead of people just accepting it as me being honest. And I'm starting to get to the point where I think people want to be grifted. People want to be lied to. I'm starting to think that it's something in human nature where, to people, the illusions and hope are more important than the actual truth. And the truth is not only has nothing in terms of police brutality changed at all, it is in fact getting worse. Okay. And I'm not going to go super in depth because if you're new here, you may say, hey, where's your research to back this up? Every single time I get on here to talk to y'all about something, I have the research to back it up. Okay. Last week and the week before, I went over all of the new legislation coming out, being hid, okay, being hid in plain sight right in the American Rescue Plan. Not only is Biden giving more money to local police, they're continuing to militarize federal police. Okay, they've suggested COVID is so big and so bad and so scary. This is the biggest pandemic we'd ever dealt with. Everybody and their mama and their grandmama about to die. But we want y'all to use these millions of dollars that we've put to the side for COVID. We want you to give it to pay your police officers extra. I want people to get to the point where you stop ignoring the truth and what's on paper for your feelings, for your emotions, for what is illusions. These Tamika Mallory's and all these other people y'all look up to, these people hang out with people in Hollywood. Hollywood is literally a place where people go to create illusions. That's theatrical, to create narratives, to create agendas, to sell products. Like, that's their job. And so This is why I consistently say over and over and over again, you as a person, and let me come back to y'all full screen. You as a person, you as a human being, you as a full functioning adult, you have to have your own standard, what's important to you and the things you believe in. Not being swept away on every narrative, every agenda, okay? Being treated like a puppet. Every time people are ready to use you as an attack dog, whether that's to attack their opponent, move their career forward, okay? Sell a product or whatever the case may be, that would not happen as much if people actually have a standard. The reason the government is able to get away with all of the BS they do is because people don't have a standard. Today I made a post, or I actually made it on Twitter a couple of days ago, but I posted it I think on Instagram today, and it said, just comply is as asinine as believe all women. If you believed all women into Tara Reid and Charlotte Bennett, if just comply was your mantra up until mass mandates and lockdowns, I'm talking to you. Both of these are limited, lack context, and set a terrible precedent. So, for example, it's interesting to me that a lot of the just comply crowds, and I've talked about this for a while now, and I think that my own mind is having trouble. No, I'm not going to say that. I'm not having trouble understanding the hypocrisy, because the truth of the matter is a lot of people just don't care about other people and just don't care until something affects them personally, affects their neighborhood, affects their demographic, or whatever the case may be, right? So just comply has been a very popular saying, right? Sometimes just casually said as it relates to handling and dealing with officers. Well, now you have people saying, oh, don't comply with lockdowns, don't comply with mask mandates, okay? Some of us, many of us will argue that these things are against human rights violations, constitutional rights violations, okay? But when I explain to those same people that uh, 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 issues with privacy, no knock warrants, stop and frisk, gun control in these inner cities, okay, and gun confiscations, and a lot of these other things, unfair and unjust bail. When I explain these other things, for some reason it's lost on people, right? You can't understand it. It's just comply because it hasn't just affected you. But now, when it's coming to mask mandates, lockdowns is looking more and more like they're gonna go pretty far with this whole vaccination thing. Now all of a sudden, it's do not comply. When the truth of the matter is that if that is your standard and you believe that every person, regardless of sex, gender, race, sexuality, creed, able, ableism, disability, and all these other words, are and have full access to their human rights, constitutional rights, and civil rights, then that standard should be consistent. So what's happening now, and what I believe we're going to see going a lot into the future, instead of teaching our young people that some things are not worth complying with, And it's situational, and it depends on your level of commitment to your standard. Everybody has a different line. But just because the Second Amendment is your line, the Fourth Amendment may be mine. The First Amendment may be my line. That may be where I draw the line. And I'm like, I'm not complying with this because this infringes on my rights. And that should be respected as a standard, because what's happening is not only are we creating a culture where a lot of these children are not going to be nothing but zombies, they're going to be sheep. All they're going to know is do this, do that, because the CDC says so, because Biden says so, because your teacher says so, because whoever said so, even when it could be stuff right in front of your eyes as a human person with God-given common sense don't make sense to you, but you're being taught to just comply. These are authority figures instead of teaching people to have critical thinking skills and adjust accordingly. Now you're creating a situation where a lot of people don't even know what you're actually supposed to fight for. They don't know what's worth fighting for, what's worth dying for. And when you have people, in past history, like the Harriet Tubmans, like the Martin Luther Kings, who had a standard and were like, I believe in this so much, and I want my children and the descendants coming after me to have it better than I have, that I'm willing to put my life on the line. That's non-compliance. But for some people, like I said, that standard may look different from yours, but it should all be based on human rights. Nobody wants their humanness to be violated, right? Their body, their property, the things that they've worked hard for, their family, okay, the right to say what they want, the right to religion, and these other things. And so, I like, Americans are like already pretty soft, to be perfectly honest. And I talked about this a long time ago, not even as it just relates to the COVID thing. I was talking about this back when you had the French that were having these yellow vest protests, and then you would have Americans here just vicariously living through the French. Like, even now, right? You have these huge protests there, and you will have people, oh, the French, and they're always fighting for their rights, and they're doing this and they're doing that. And then you look over here, and it's like, it's now to the point where it's now to the point where you have these evictions that's going to be coming up soon. You have this possible, well, it's being said that it's official now, these vaccination passports that are going to start in New York. Y'all know that stuff usually starts with New York and California, and then you will have some of these other places that follow. And what's going to happen, it's going to create a bigger and bigger rift and a conflict in this country. You have a huge segment of people that want to be controlled, that want to answer to the authorities every whim, and then you have people that want to be left alone. And even the people that say they want to be left alone, if you don't have a standard of like where you draw the line, what actually matters to you, and things like that, then what's the point? So we're possibly facing the biggest homelessness crisis, okay, in a country right now. So you basically had the House that recently went on vacation, preventing the eviction moratorium from expiring recently. So you have about 7.4 million Americans at risk of eviction in the next 2 months after the moratorium ends July 31st. The House failed to pass a bill that would have extended the moratorium, and members are now on recess until August. Now, the crazy part about it, as this was happening, you had LA Mayor Eric Garcetti sign an ordinance criminalizing homelessness following city council a vote in favor of it. Okay, so y'all know anytime we mandate something or criminalize something, that means it can be escalated up into force. All right. So one thing that I've been adamant, and I often say this, is that if something to you is not worth being escalated up to force, if you don't think this is almost worth the potential of death, right? Consider if this is something you want mandated, because that's what that means. That's what that means when these cities, when these states mandate something, right? When they criminalize something, when they create new laws, that means that a officer has a right to come coerce you, force you to comply with that. So, as first of all, I've already saw a video floating around on Twitter. This was on some beach in California, and you have officers out there with their AR standing out. And this is what I was told the context of the video was: officers trying to get the homeless people off of the beach already. Already. So, to people who, have this idea of making the world this perfect place, and oh, we're just gonna make this law of this, and we're just gonna do this, but it's so progressive, and it'll be for the best, and we're just gonna make everybody wear a mask, or we're just gonna, make everybody have vaccine passports. These things take a force to enforce. You can't have abolition of police existing simultaneously with these other things. It is impossible. And that was a huge point of me trying to explain that last year, why abolishing the police, and even, you know, reforming the police and how it was presented, I'm like, this is not actually making sense and going along with particularly what I would believe the Joe Biden administration to do. The two cannot coexist at the same time. And as we see, as I did content last week, not only Joe Biden don't give a crap about Chuck Schumer's new decriminalization of cannabis legislation that was introduced. Okay, they're also not backing down on the drug war at all, at all. So maybe when people understand this, they can move accordingly and understand the system to a different level. I particularly believe is ways to combat this is, first of all, reduce some of these freaking laws. Like people have to stop like going along or saying this is okay because it sounds like, oh, this is a great deal and this is going to make the world so much a better place, without thinking about these things take force to implement, right? So that's number one. Decriminalizing or letting go of nonviolent offenders, and then also empowering citizens, empowering families, right? And empowering women, empowering men too, are that are in these more dangerous cities, to be like, you have autonomy, you have agency over your domain and your home. You're there before we get there. I want you to be able to protect yourself, your wife, your children. And most uh, uh um criminals, right, are just low level, just trying to do something quick, usually want to put up the least of a fight, petty crimes, may want money, may want your TV, but most people aren't trying to, normal everyday people typically aren't just trying to go be in a gunfight. Like, even if you read a lot of like interviews from like criminals, robbers, people that have been into jail, they will tell you that they want to just attack the least assuming person. These aren't people that's trying to go fight, typically somebody that's um training every day, at the gun range every other day, doing dry fire every other day. So there's really something to consider when people know. Like, I know the area where I grew up in, you would hear certain people saying, I'm not going over there. They don't play over there. The people don't play over there. The police don't play over there. These people know where to go and where not to go, who to mess with and who to play with, and where they can get away with stuff. And by empowering citizens, right, empowering families, making people like they have a agency as well, that changes things, that changes the dynamic. um so not necessarily, I won't go as far, like, I'm not trying to have like I told you so type moment. Like, it's not even that. I think it's more so the fact that it's something about reading your news. I think I probably say that almost like every live now. Like, read your news and read more just in general, because I think it makes you smarter. Like, and that may sound so like generic and like duh, you know what I mean? But it's like you start to see the play so much easier than watching these TV personality news anchors, okay? And they're feeding their perspective to you, instead of, you can just kind of more so get right to the information. Um So me kind of seeing that and seeing the things that's happening, and trying to just be transparent with people and show people like what's going on. And it's like, you have some people that still don't get it. Do not get it. will not put 1 and 2 together to make 3, will refuse, will talk down on people that ain't got a dog in the fight, not oppressing you, ain't gonna lose no sleep, but will turn around and make a hero out of these politicians that just went on, they put the vacation sign out for lunch on their door for the next however couple many weeks while moratoriums are ending. These are the people that people will make heroes out of. These are the people, these activists that I say they had y'all super hyped last year. And even though nothing's changed, these people have practically moved on with their lives, doing Cadillac commercials, getting homes by the lake, and ain't even told you they haven't even mentioned. Have they mentioned anything to y'all about Joe Biden's recycling of this drug legislation? Have they mentioned anything about Joe Biden giving more uh, resources and funds to local and federal police, particularly from COVID funds? Have they even mentioned it? Have they even said it? Can you find it on their pages? Have they told you that police brutality has not decreased, but you know what has? The algorithms, because Facebook controls it, Instagram controls it, Google controls it. The same people, and I said this is a trap. This is a trap. The same people y'all were taking up for when I said them removing Trump is a trap. You have to be forward thinking. Please get out of the moment. Get out of your feels. Think ahead. At least think next year, 5 years, 10 years. And here we are now, just a year later. And the algorithms are removing all the police brutality stories so y'all can just be in la la land, whatever, go back to sleep, whatever. All of it is algorithm induced. So ultimately, I just want people to stop pretending. Like, stop pretending you care about stuff that you don't. Stop putting up your little black square because your friends and your coworkers put up your black square. Stop hashtagging this and that. You with this and that, and you really not. You just talking about it because it's the trending popular thing. You don't really care. It's just a thing to do. It's virtue signaling. Trying to let all the people around on your social media, your friends and family know you down for the cause too. And whole time you don't even know about the cause unless they force feeding it to you. I just want my people to be free from the hypocrisy, from the lies, from the emotionalism, like, and get focused on the things that matter, the things that you actually care about, having a standard, and the things that directly affect your quality of life. And the crazy part about it is, this is how good the media is. This is how good the media is. So I don't know if people like going back to sleep so much that they don't actually see that we're about to be up against the actual fight, right? Or I don't know if they're literally just trying to create a recipe for absolute chaos. I really haven't completely figured out which way that's going to go yet. But I do know that you're about to have a lot of people upset about homelessness. You're about to have a lot of people upset that there either will or won't be more lockdowns. You're gonna have people fighting mask or no mask, to vax or not to vax. You know, it's going to be a lot of things going on, and if you don't have a standard, and if you don't actually know what's going on, and you're being force fed by the same people who are propped up by the algorithms that pay and promote the same people in Hollywood, a made up world, you're depending on people that do movies and act for a living to tell you the truth and teach you about some. Entertainers are not leaders. Teas available in my description box below. Cheap plug. Like, I mean, it's like to this point, people either like super duper aware, and like it's almost like so you have just a sensitivity to everything going on, are just super duper like just whacked out, zombied out, like don't even notice, don't care, have to be force fed every single idea, information, standard, calls. When you have a government that is going to try to force, I'm looking at you, NYC, and we're about to talk about this. When you have a government that is going to try to coerce, okay? Coerce. They're not gonna, it's not looking like, I'll say that. Right now, it's not looking like they're gonna outright uh 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 tell you, well, they kind of are. I'm trying to figure out the best way to say this, right? So coercion means almost like giving you no choice, okay? Almost like trying to push you. It's a heavy, heavy level of persuasion, almost to backing you in a corner, okay? So like a like force, like coercion force, right? If you can understand that as it relates to the body and sex, you should absolutely 100% be able to understand that as it relates to the government. And so, if you know or understand the concept of freedom and human rights, like this body is mine, it belongs to me. It's my body. Doesn't belong to my mom, my dad, Bill de Blasio, Cuomo, Dr. Fauci, Trump, Biden, Kamala Harris, science, the greater good, the CDC. It belongs to me. That's it. End of story. Period. No more discussion. And so being coerced into something, being physically injected into your body that you own, how is that not slavery? The definition of slavery is ownership. If I do not own the rights to my own body, me, what is that? And why so many people can't understand a very simple concept is beyond me. Particularly the people who would normally argue slavery was wrong. My body, my choice. Coercion is rape. at some point it becomes about the precedent that is being set. Again, we talked about forward thinking. Get out of your feelings for a moment and think, if they can do this today and you just comply, what about 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 50 years from now? What type of precedent does it set? This, if people want to get the vaccine, I know people personally that have, it is a personal decision, more power to them. I would not try to force them nor coerce them to not. That's their body. They have autonomy and agency and sovereignty over their body. They have a brain between their ears where they can make a decision what they want to do with their body. I have the same. It's really just that simple. And then when you add on top of that the lack of information that we have, we're still learning about this virus. We're still learning about the vaccinations. Okay, the science is changing day to day. When you start to factor all these other things in, on top, you know, on top of the even more problematic side of it, it should be easy to understand why some people are hesitant. So instead of a government that is inspiring, influential, goes above and beyond to be trustworthy, they rather be coercive. I find that problematic. And I will personally believe whether you watching this receive the vaccine or not should see how that could be potentially problematic. Another thing I really don't understand, for the hundreds and thousands of people that were in the streets last year that were so anti-government, F the system, we're living in a system of KKK, white supremacy, we're being led by Nazis, to turn around and this year be totally, oh, listen to the science that comes from and is funded by the government. What has changed in that amount of time? And the crazy part about it is, I don't know what makes people think that the government changes its stripes. Like, these are the same exact people, the same death and destruction that has been propagated for years and years and decades at this point. It has not changed. They've just found different ways to do it. Right? So that could be through our poor education, that could be limiting our access to fresh foods, right? They'll give these business loans and all this to different vultures to move in certain neighborhoods. When you have uh, uh, a lot of stuff we could talk about, a lot of stuff, even down to now they telling us they want to talk to our children in the schools about masturbation at like 5 years old, and they're okay, almost up until the point where they'll take your kids from you if you don't affirm the gender that they weren't given at birth. Trying to take your guns and leave you in areas where they can't even get to you fast enough. It's so much, so many levels and ways of the destruction that exists today, and people try to ignore it. And a lot of these things, even if we're looking at the current hypersexualization, right, through hip hop, through pop culture. We just talked about this last week with or I don't remember if we talked about the baby. I know I talked about it on Instagram, right? But the baby and Lil Nas X, both of them going back and forth. Everybody's so hype, trying to take up for whoever they support. And the whole time, all I see is social programming and social engineering. All I see is two hypersexualized young black men who are still promoting the prison system. That's all I see. I that other stuff, people going back and forth, and the whole time is social programming, social engineering. But people want to focus on most surface level, the most surface level, most obvious, most, because it's easy. That's the easiest thing to do. Focus and look exactly where uh uh they tell you to. Easiest thing to do. Not think for yourself. Uh, 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 take the position that has been easily just handed to you. That's why people like watching the news. That's why people prefer watching the news instead of reading it, because it's easy to just listen to them. Oh, they look nice. They look, like somebody who I like to hang out with, have a beer with. They, look like me, resemble me, remind me of my uncle. I like them. They make me laugh. I'll just, whatever you say, news reporter guy. But when you read, your brain goes into motion. You start thinking, you start imagining, you start putting things together, you start noticing patterns. It's a whole different level of your brain working. Somebody asked me last week, what can we do to I think Jupiter asked me, actually. Jupiter Ice. Um what can we do to get people to focus on the things that really matter? Celebrity worship has to end. Every single one of these people put in front of us deserve a healthy skepticism. Just point blank, period. I don't care how much, money they have. I don't care how cool you think they are. I don't care regardless of the platform you think they ran on, and you ain't read a lick of their agenda or anything else. Every single one of these people, I don't care how beautiful you think they are. Oh, representation. Those some of the main ones that'll lead you down the wrong path. Because they haven't changed the programming, they haven't changed the destruction, they have changed the packaging. I was talking about this on Twitter the other day. I said, why is it's this video of on Twitter floating around, right? And it's like of these black women, and all of them are noticeably overweight up into obese, okay? And they're dancing to this little popular song, right? And you people are taking different positions. Some people are, yes, queen, yes, and some people are, we shouldn't be celebrating this. But what I would notice, it would be mostly on pages geared towards, like, black people, young people, kind of like, people like the shade room, blog sites and this type of thing, right? I would notice every single place I would see this video, it will always be white liberal women in the comments, but they're always skinny. And they will be saying, oh, like, y'all should celebrate this. Like, this is so amazing. And I'm thinking, As many times as I saw that video, it was a very consistent few women that all had this same kind of similar like profile, right? And these weren't like ugly women. They definitely weren't fat women. And I'm starting to notice a theme here. And so I asked on Twitter, why would skinny white women be interested in celebrating like obese black women? I just find that concept very interesting. And I started to think about how that ties into the theme of with pop culture, we've created a system where they have us celebrate our demise. Every single thing, along with the politicians down to the algorithms. These people cover for, promote, propagate so much degeneracy, okay? Uh uh um just all type of things. Like all type of things. And I'm starting to notice that they want us to celebrate a lot of the things that are proven. These things are on paper. We have years of studies to show that fatherless homes, promiscuity, hypersexualization, over independence or self-dependency, drug use and alcohol, obesity. We have years and years and years and years and years of documented studies on paper that show that these things are destructive. And yet and still, you will turn on your freaking TV and you will see a freaking politician, a media personality, a news reporter, or some random white woman liberal on Twitter telling us these things should be celebrated. Now you've created a culture where people like the baby can rap about being salacious, promiscuous, irresponsible, about murdering, murder, theft, robbery, all of these other things. But the moment they say something that you believe or allude to be anti homosexuality, right? Because that could be an argument within itself. And I don't even want to go that deep. Now that's a line too far. But when we're celebrating and rapping and talking about and promoting all of the things that are literally death and destruction culture, as it relates to actual surveys and studies that we have documented over time, particularly coming through the civil rights era up until now, is to be celebrated. Things that celebrate death and destruction to the point where you have people putting it in music. And don't get me wrong, like, y'all know, like, I'm a free speech person. Like, look, it is what it is. But one thing we're not gonna do, we're not going to ignore the hypocrisy. If we're gonna be moral around this thing, let's all be moral. Let's do that. Let's keep it together. Let's get this thing on one accord. Cause this picking and choosing and it's looking like all the things that are destructive and harmful to the bloodline are to be celebrated. is looking kind of suspicious. It's looking real suspicious. It's looking real suspicious. And I find it problematic. And I feel like the moment that more people's light bulb goes off to the hypocrisy, the games that are being played, the puppeteering, look this way, oh no, look this way, oh, this is trending, oh, this is popular now, oh, be mad at this person, but don't talk about this person. The moment people start to see and recognize this, you can't unsee it. You can't unsee it. I used to make all the excuses in the world for hip hop. All of them. All the excuses in the world. The same generic talking points that you're going to hear everybody else say. But then when I saw from my own eyes how impactful these things could be, when I saw big grown people talking about they're going to try Molly, talking about they're going to eat the groceries because of something you heard in a lyric, you heard in a song, it is undeniable the level of programming, the level of impact, the level of influence. It's undeniable that hip hop is having. When they put something in a song and the next thing you know, that product is sold out, it is undeniable the level of influence that hip hop is having. And don't only want to talk about the level of influence hip hop is having when it's a favorable talking point. When you want to talk about how great it is and how it's worldwide and how it's so important to culture and American culture and pop culture and this, then the other. If we're going to talk about the influence, you have to talk about it holistically, right? And from each angle and the impact that it's having, particularly on our youth. And music, not only music, but words have vibrations, right? This is why I talk about this all the time. Even up until last year, calling us non essential. Non essential to who? Non essential to what? That statement is so elusive, no context, and you're just around here calling people non-essential. I'm just as essential to my family as Jeff Bezos is to his. And I wouldn't allow anybody to make me feel any differently. Especially not people who pretend to be eat the rich, anti-capitalism, and all the other little sayings. You know. So New York City looks like it's going to be requiring. Let's look a little bit at this. NYC becoming first major U.S. city to mandate vaccination proof for indoor dining and gyms. The program is the latest attempt by Mayor Bill de Blasio to encourage more people to get vaccinated against COVID-19. New York City will require proof of vaccination for leisure indoor activities at restaurants, gyms, and performances, becoming the first major city in the United States to do so. Mayor Bill de Blasio, in making an announcement Tuesday morning at a news conference, said the program known as the Key to NYC Pass will begin in mid-August during a transition period before it will be fully enforced beginning the week of September 13th. It is time for people to see vaccinations as literally necessary to live in a good, full, and healthy life. How is something necessary when you already had a 99% chance, even higher than 99% chance of living? So to say it's necessary to live in a good, full, and healthy life is false. Absolutely false. If you're unvaccinated, unfortunately, you will not be able to participate in many things. So with this, on one hand, I feel like like, it is what it is. The people in New York City have to fight, like, for the things they want. And that's just what it comes down to. That's how I feel on one hand. On the other hand, I feel like the federal government under no circumstances should fund or send federal tax dollars to any states that continuously override and trample on human rights and constitutional rights. And the bigger problem is it's like a tumor. It's like a tumor, right? Like the saying a threat to justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And so it's like a growing tumor. It's a growing tumor, and these people bring their delusions to other places, and before you know it, it spreads. And like I said, I'm not a slave. I don't belong to anybody, and my body is my body. And so I'm if you want to let the government, if you want to be force fed what to do in every uh uh you know opinion, or even if it's not that, you may just genuinely as a person want the vaccination. Like, more power to you. It is what it is. Like, we're adults here. We're all humans. We all have functioning brains. People make your own choice, but to force it on other people as if they don't have free will, autonomy as it relates to, like, if something happens to this, like, Bill de Blasio isn't going to do anything for you. Nothing. Zero. Zip. Zitch. Zilch. Nada. Probably won't even know you exist. So, those are just some things to consider when you are the person that has to deal with the consequences either way. Either way. And this is why I believe a person should be able to choose, because you have to deal with the consequences. Not the CDC, not Dr. Fauci, not Biden, not the scientists. You. So whether you decide to take the vaccine or you don't, you will have to be responsible for the consequences and what comes along with that. I mean, you know, um, it just is what it is. And really, I don't know what's on in New York. Now you even have Biden coming out saying that, hey, Cuomo should resign. Biden says Cuomo should resign as sexual harassment findings emerge. Investigators say they corroborated the claims of 11 women who have accused Mr. Cuomo of inappropriate behavior, from suggestive comments to instances of groping. Andrew Cuomo sexually harassed 11 women, including current and former government workers, whose accounts of unwanted touching and inappropriate comments were corroborated in a damning report released on Tuesday by the New York State Attorney General Letitia James. The 165-page report prompted multiple calls for Mr. Cuomo to resign, including from President Biden, a longtime ally of the governor, and it caused doubt on Mr. Cuomo's political future. The Democratic Speaker of the state assembly said on Tuesday that he intended to quicken the pace of a separate impeachment inquiry, adding that Mr. Cuomo can no longer remain in office. So, I don't know what's really going on with this, but when it goes as far as Joe Biden saying something like these people are really on his neck and they're not playing, and he has to go. Like, that's just is what it is. So we're probably going to be seeing something happening with that uh soon. But my belief is is that I kind of feel like it's more to it. I can't say for certain, but even Joe Biden to come out as far as saying this, and Joe Biden is not a stranger to allegations himself, along with inappropriate groping that we've all seen with our own eyes. Um, I just think that's interesting. But um somebody camera stage video said, I don't think he will resign. Jupiter I said, these people change their tune so fast. The media is always their authority on how to think and act. Shaking my head. You can't make this stuff up. LOL. Thank you. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you, Loki, for the super chat. Loki 707. Um, but at this point, y'all, I'm kind of somewhere between like nihilism and optimism. I think it just depends on like the day and how I'm feeling. But I'm kind of, I think, somewhat getting to a point where like it is what it is. When some of these things come to my front door, I'll just handle them accordingly and how I would handle it. But some people are so far like in a daze that I don't think most people understand the implications and the potential of some of the things that's going on. And when you add some of these things up, it's a recipe for disaster. I was talking about this on Twitter today. Even some of the things that we're looking at that are like legit signs of a failed nation: inflation, emasculated men, more gun control, government controlled schools, hypersexualization of women and children, decreasing birth rates, increased unemployment. You know, and you start putting all these things in a pot and, you know, mixing it up, and many of these things being very destructive. And we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see where this leads us. But people that actually care about like personal freedom and autonomy, and you want your neighbor to be able to make their individual decision while also being able to make yours, you know, we're probably gonna be up for a fight coming up. And if you're anything like me, you know, I'm just out here living. I'm young, healthy, and free, and so for some reason, it's making people either mad, uncomfortable, confused. Particularly if you ain't stay in your house, hiding out over the last year and stuff like that. For some people, that can be very angering and confusing. Particularly people that hid in their homes all year, and now you come out, and the first thing you do, even with your mask and all the other precautions that you're taking, get COVID, and then you can look at people and it's like, it must be you. You must be the cause of all this. I could see, you know, you lost a year of your life to the same government that just took a vacation and closed their offices and said, they're going to be on the beach having a mimosa while the homeless people are being pulled up on by officers with AR-15s, being told to leave the area. I could see why that would be frustrating, you know. But hey, and particularly for the people who wanted. Like I maintain my same position the entire time. Let young, healthy people continue to work, continue on with their lives while taking safety precautions for our elderly and our sick. I said this from the beginning of COVID up until now. If you were here rocking with me, you know that, right? Um, Position has not changed. Uh my position has not changed on that at all. Unfortunately, with some of these evictions that are getting ready to happen for the evictions that are happening to people who trust the government, felt like we should have did these lockdowns, wanted to stay at home and chill. Whatever your reason may be for feeling like, this is the thing to do. Now you have to face the consequences. Now you have to accept the consequences. This is something you wanted. These are the consequences. So accept it gracefully, learn from it, move on with your life. I can't particularly say I feel bad for those people, because if you want something, you deal with the consequences. That's how life works, particularly for adults who can't constantly be saved from their decisions and the things that they comply with, right? However, I don't feel the same for the business owners, the small business owners, the individuals that were forced and coerced out of work, didn't comply, you know, made their voices heard, said this wasn't right, said where these things were going to lead up to, tried to stand up for what's right, try to stand against the huge wealth transfer that we just saw from a lot of the middle class and the poor to the rich. I feel super bad for those people. If that's you, you're in my prayers, definitely in my thoughts. Um, if you are in a city or a state that has lockdowns coming up, and you are a small business that would like to tell your story about how you've been impacted by lockdowns or anything like that, I would love to support you, help you get your story out. So feel free to email me, possibly even do an interview. Hit me up on social media or whatever the case may be. But yeah, like, I feel totally, completely bad for some people who were affected and caught up in other people's BS, or coerced and forced out of their businesses and their homes and things like that. So, but anyway, y'all, I mean, um, life goes on. We'll see what happens. But over the last year, collectively, you've had so many people bamboozled and like just flat out lied to, misdirected, uh, uh, tricked. That is very like saddening, and is very unfortunate. But at this point, if those same people don't see what's going on at the height of some of the things we're getting ready to see, then they may never see it. And usually there are a few who will actually stand out, right? Like, stand up for the things, um and have a standard for the things that matter, and are going to matter in the long run. And we could look at several examples of history. We can look at several examples of history to even know that. But anyway, so thank y'all for joining me tonight. We will keep updated and abreast on some of these things going on, particularly as any moves they trying to make as it resist or rejects our right to freedom, to free association. Oh, and this was my this is a point. I wanted to make this point earlier and I did not make it, and it's such an important point. Also, I want people to recognize the role that the government plays in picking the winners and the losers and picking who people can't identify with. So if you will notice, right, even during slavery, right, you had very racist people during that time, obviously, right? What made it worse is when you had the government, a system that maintained or picked the winners and the losers. That is what exacerbated slavery, racism, and the problem. Even going into civil rights, you had a government that mandated who people could and could not associate with. So let me break it down a little bit more. During where you would have, so after slavery, not long after slavery, you had areas where black people were thriving, right? Building things, rebuilding communities. You know, you had doctors, scientists, school teachers, all of these other things. Also, sometimes there's stories where you have people. Oh man, her name is not coming to me. Right now, the first female start male carriers. Her name will come to me in a second. It's escaping me at this very moment, right? But you would have this black woman who would go apply for these jobs and would be so great that you would be moved to the top. You would be the first black at this position, or you would be moved to the, ahead of other applicants and things like that. Eventually, not long after that, you had things like Jim Crow laws, mandates that were implemented, right? And so now to back, promote, propagate, and maintain racism and pick the winners and the losers, Stagecoach Mary, thank you. Never mind. Okay, but I don't know why I couldn't think of it at the moment. But you would have the government that would uphold these things, even to the point where people who are supposed to have human rights couldn't even have the freedom of association. So if I'm just a business owner, and let's say particularly a white business that, I'm maybe not doing as good as my competition, or let's say I'm not racist and I'm just like, man, it's money, I want everybody money, these people can come eat here, like, money is green, I'm selling food, it's whatever. But you would have a government that's like, no, we're mandating forced separation through these laws that are put in place to maintain this racism, right? So now when you look at the parallels of that, looking at the current situation, you still have the government picking the winners and the losers, and it is not right. It is never right. They did this with the essential and non-essential, right? These businesses can stay open, these businesses can't. Now it's looking like they're going to absolutely do this with the vaccination passports. You have I believe Cuomo and possibly Bill de Blasio coming out and saying straightforward, we want private businesses. You are a private business. This is your business. We don't have stock in the game. We don't have stake in the game, but we want to tell you, you can't associate with these people. We are going to mandate you to stop you from making your own choice as a private business, as a human with human rights to choose who you want to associate with. This business owner might say anybody could come here. Or this business owner may say I only want unvaccinated people here. I only want vaccinated people here. And for the government to come in and say, oh, no, 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 we ain't having any of that. We are going to tell you, we are going to coerce you to who you can and cannot sell to. We are going to pick the winners and the losers. We don't like the decisions of these people over here. So we're going to coerce you to not do business with them. Even though these people are amongst and in your community, and you may not even have a problem with serving them, selling to them. So it's a very repetitive theme. And this is why I say, this is a big reason why I say you cannot leave your child's education completely up to these teachers, particularly in the public school, but any of them. You have to make sure your children are reading. You have to make sure that your children are learning history. And you have to also make sure that they understand concepts and they have reading comprehension skills, because the more you read, you start seeing these parallels. And you're like, the government stopped the freedom of association here. Now they're doing it again. These things are not the same, but I see some parallels here. I see some parallels going on. But when you don't have that in the schools and you're more concerned about teaching young children, 4 and 5 year olds, about gender and how to please themselves, why the heck would I want a freaking teacher teaching my child anything about self-pleasure, particularly at 4 and 5 years old? Just a few years ago, this would have been freaking unheard of. So when you see all these things start to be connected, you see that a lot of these things haven't changed. It's just new packaging. And it's still a lot of miseducation going on for a reason. Destructive behaviors, deadly behaviors still being promoted, celebrated, and all these other things. And the more you read it, you start making parallels, you start seeing these things for yourself, you can't unsee it. You can't, like it's like when that bullet comes out of that gun, you can't put that back in there. You can't get that back in there. So, you know, just some things, just some things to think about. Just some things to think about. But yeah, I had to leave y'all um on that note. I forgot to mention that earlier on, but I'm like, wow. When people, I thought it was a little cliche when people be like, if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. Mm. Like, I kind of see like what they mean more and more now. Like, it's becoming so clear. But anyway, let me get out of here. Thank y'all as always for supporting me and rocking with me. Thank you to those who sent a super chat. Thank you so much to my patrons that support my content. Special thank you to my VIP patrons, Ray and Daniel. Make sure if you want merch, all of that is in my link below. I will be in Orlando, Florida this Friday for the Young Americans for Liberty Revolution 2021. And then I will be in at the Solutionary Summit in Miami September 3rd through the 5th. So that's going to be next month. So some very exciting things coming up. Oh, and I have an interview tomorrow. Tomorrow with Antonia Okafor for GOA members, but I'll be posting more information about that on my social media. So if y'all not following me, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, RhondaMary, RhondaMary Vids. I am RhondaMary, some combination of that, because y'all know a couple things I've been like blocked and banned from and all that other stuff. But all right, y'all, we'll talk soon. Y'all have a good night. Bye.